Hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and as the title of this video indicates, we got another little hayman job to do today. Recently, a friend was over here in the neighborhood, and we were just walking around the shop inside the Tin Barn here, just looking at various things, and he saw the give tightening knobs for the X-axis that I have on my mill. I'll try to insert a picture here of them actually in place. The original knobs or tightening apparatus on the mill were these locks. I'm sure you're familiar with them. Tighten them down, you could push in there and reset it. Just really not, to me, were not very convenient to use. So I replaced them with these homemade ones. This was an 1 3/4 round stock aluminum that set up in the mill and did a bolt hole pattern, drilled out the center and pressed this 8mm bolt into. He said he would like to have a couple of them. I'm not sure exactly what he's using them on. He does some woodworking, so again, he told me it just didn't register to me what he was talking about. But he wants them made out of brass. The handle's made out of brass. And I got some 1 5/8 here, brass. And he said he needed 5/16. And I've got some 5/16 socket head cap screws. They're a little longer than what he needs, but I had some of these in stock. I think this is 1.5 inches. He probably only needs 1 inch, but he said he would take care of cutting them down. So what we're going to do is set this piece of brass up in the mill. We're going to lay out our bolt hole pattern and mill those out deep enough for 2. Then we'll carry it over to the lathe, drill it. I'm using a 13/32 bit for. That's really going to be a tight fit. I would love to have something within about 5 or 10 thousandths of the head on this socket head cap screw. This was in about 25 thousandths, but we'll look at what I'm doing over on the press when we get to that part to alleviate messing it up. I tried a test piece like this, and you can see what happened when I tried to press up here on the top. It pressed in fine, but a little too much pressure on the top there. So when we get over to the press, you'll see what I'm going to use to alleviate that problem. So let's turn over to the mill now and get the brass set up in the mill. All right, we're over at the mill now, and I'm going to use this V-block that I made especially for using in the lathe vise. I'll put this parallel across the bottom, and we'll tighten down pretty good. Alright, I can still see on this piece of brass where it was faced off in the past, so I'm going to use that just to get it close to center. Then we'll use the coaxial indicator to get it dead nuts on. Alright, I suspect that's going to be within maybe 10-20 thousandths. Alright, that should have the indicator in place now. I'll put an arm on and just let that bump against the back of the mill. Alright, that looked like about 10 thousandths on that axis. Alright, let's put the indicator in a slow speed. And I'll start with the x-axis. What we're trying to do is find the shortest stroke on that, on the indicator on this axis. See, that widened out. All right, that's about the shortest stroke there, so we'll go to the y-axis now. That's within 1/1000ths right there. All right, I'm not sure how well you can see that needle, but that's within 1/2 thousandths right now. So I'm going to zero out the DRO on both axes and call that good. All right, I'm going to turn over to the DRO now and get a bolt hole pattern set up for our grips on each side. All right, I've got a bolt hole pattern set up in the DRO now. Yep. I've got the Z-axis zeroed out. So the first one, and I'll not try to show setting up the bolt hole pattern on the DRO. That differs with every DRO, every different manufacturer out there, and I've done several videos where I showed that with mine. But we're moving over now. You won't necessarily be able to see how it's cutting until we get around to one of these. But I'm cutting half the width of the end mill. And again, I'm going to cut this deep enough to get two of them out and the saw cut in between, of course. Which in this case, I'm going to go to 1 inch in depth. All right, we'll get the coordinates for our second hole. All right, I just realized something. I put a 2-flute end mill in there, and I should have had a 4-flute for brass. I had aluminum on my mind when I picked that end mill. All right, so I'm going to change that end mill out, and I'll bring you back when we get to one of these holes over here on the side, so you can see more of how we're cutting. Okay, I've come around to my 4th hole now, and as you can see, I'm just cutting with half the width of the end mill, and the reach out here is exactly half the diameter, or the radius. Now we're ready to go to our 5th hole, which should be directly opposite from the first one we put over here. Okay, we're ready for our last hole now. All right, I'm going to cut this in real time, and you can see how good this 4-flute end mill is cutting. That 2-flute was really struggling on the first hole. All right. Okay, we can take our piece out now. I'm going to go over to the lathe to drill and part this. But before I do, I'm going to go around over to the what I call the dirty side of the 10-born, and on the Scotch-Brite wheel, just knock all these burrs and sharp edges off. All right, I got some of the rough edges knocked off now. Once we get these drilled and parted, I'll go back to the Scotch-Brite wheel and ease off all the edges just to make it comfortable in hand. We're going to drill it now. I think my spotting drill is due a replacement. It's kind of dull. Again, we're drilling this with a 13/32 bit, and we're going to drill about an inch deep. Now I'm going to put just a small chamfer on this end to serve as a lead in for the socket head cap screw when we press that in. That's pretty much all I was looking for right there. Now I think my parting blade should be, or I think the compound should be set perpendicular to the workpiece, but we'll run it on up here and try anyhow. I can see I'll need to extend out the parting tool just a little bit. That's a 4mm. Alright, we need a little straight edge there. I'll zero out the Z-axis on the DRO. And our head thickness, (303 thousandths). We'll go about 300 thousandths. I don't care if it sits proud just a little bit, which 3 thousandths wouldn't be discernible anyhow. Alright, we'll try slowing it down even more. That interrupted cut there is vibrating my cutting tool pretty bad, my parting tool. Alright, let me check the height on my parting tool now. I know that interrupted cut is part of the issue, but for some reason it's not wanting to go in there very well. Alright, my blade was just pushing back in here. I've got that reset and got it tightened, so I think we should be able to finish parting now. Alright, we're going to have to push it out just a little further. I don't believe I've ever had this much of an issue parting anything. Alright, I'm going to pull back up here, give me a little bit of a lead-in chamfer on this one. And we'll lay out for the next one. And what I'm going to do on this one is actually pull my cutting blade in pretty close. Just have it sticking out enough to get past these finger grips on here. It's causing the interrupted cut. Now we'll extend our blade out a little bit. All right, I can assure you folks, this is not the first time I've ever parted, but this kind of gave me a fit this time. So I'm going to take the two pieces. They're too hot to hold up here now, but I'm going to carry them back over to the Scotch-Brite wheel, clean up all the sharp edges, get them dressed up, and I'll meet you over at the press. Okay, I got the edges rounded off, corners rounded off. Nice smooth little hand wheel here, or hand knob. And as I said in the beginning of the video, we don't want to do this. We don't want to bend another socket head cap screw. So what I've got is just simply a little sleeve. These are 5/16 socket head cap screws we're using. So we're going to use that as a guide. And what I'm going to do to begin, just to help hold it in place, is just tap it like that a little bit. Now we'll put it under the press, and hopefully this flat on here and the flat on the bottom will keep everything in line. Alright, we're close now. We'll take it a little slower. I've got a little bit big chamfer on that side. Didn't quite set it down all the way, so I'll turn that over and we'll run that just a little more. All right. I think that's going to work well. Let's grab the other one right quick. All right, let's go back over to the workbench and we'll recap this video real quickly. Well, there you have it, folks. Another Hayman project completed here in the tin barn. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video.